All right. So that's my new way of starting all my classes. All right. It comes from Swami Swahananda, actually. He said, all right. Swami Prabhupada used to do that too. Anyway, we're on chapter 20. We're on the first page, and we're going to talk about Holy Mother in the midst of her family. And we've already talked a little bit about this, how her family was quite a bit of struggle for her. We look at her and we see the Divine Mother, an incarnation of God. And of course, her family would just see Auntie Sharada. They're not going to see all of that. Jesus, had the same problem. He said, no prophet is ever honored in his hometown because you're just the little kid that grew up down the street. Nobody's going to see anything special about you. And so it'll be interesting to see what the Divine Mother goes through here. And so they have this introductory from the Chandi that says, "O Mother, you are the great primal energy, the source of infinite strength. You are the seed of the world and illusion divine. You have enchanted the whole universe, O Goddess supreme, with your deluding charms. In your benevolence, you bestow liberation upon human beings." I'd like to play around with this verse a little bit here. Just reading some of these interesting things that it says. Okay, you are the primal energy, the very first energy, that very source of energy. And I like to think about that. That would be word in the Christian world. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And Word is what Jesus became. He was the purest manifestation of that, as is Thakur or Buddha. Any of these great incarnations are pure manifestations of Word. But everything else also comes from that Word. And what is Word? It's language. What is language? Language is sound. And what is sound? Sound is vibration. And so this is the active mind. Mother is the active mind, because I say that because for me the creation happens within me, within my own mind. There's no external. So all of this is created out of dream stuff. All of this is created out of mind stuff. And we've talked about why that might be so, because we can only get stuff from our senses, and we don't know what the source of our senses is. And the mind takes all of this information from our senses and creates a model of the universe. And so what we're actually seeing and experiencing right now is a model within our own mind of the universe. It's not the universe itself. We don't have access to that because our brain is in a black box in our head and can't get anything but information from the senses. And the sources of those senses are eyes, ears, nose, mouth, skin. All of those things are just as much a symbol for the source of those sensations as the sensations themselves. And so we don't have any verification of an external world. So this world, this mind, is the realm of the Divine Mother, the active mind. And her magic begins with giving us the illusion of a separate, independent existence. She gives us that illusion of being separate and apart from the whole. And it's not it's an illusion, but it's not a malicious illusion. For us, because we believe ourselves to be separate and apart and in the illusion, for us, good evening, Ritu. We think that it's real, and because we think it's real as we understand it, we suffer for it. But really, all Mother has done is created this individual self that now is going to long for the things of God. And if we knew that we were longing for the things of God, we wouldn't have any trouble. But by longing for the things of God, we imagine them because we're going out through the senses to get them. We imagine these things of God that we're longing for to be objects. This is what happened to our beloved Eve in the Garden of Eden. She went out through the senses. She looked at that fruit and saw that it was beautiful, that she thought it would be good for food. And then the third thing was she thought it would fulfill her. It would make her like God. And so that was the formation of the first ego, was that whole process. And so Such that that story is looping in our head right now, and we're maintaining this sense of egoism. We're going out through our senses for our fulfillment, and we're identify ourselves from the outside in by body and then mind. That's how we talk about ourselves. We're not able to talk about ourselves from the inside out, because if we were to do that, we would instantly know our nature. If you try and describe yourself from the inside out, there's no boundaries in there. There's no geolocation in there. So there's the infinite, the isness, the being. There's Satchitananda in there. So she's this great primal energy, this mind that can construct the dream world in its entirety, in almost infinite detail, in real time as we go. This is the Divine Mother, the source of infinite strength. Infinite strength in that this world of change, that which keeps the vibration moving, that is the self. Ultimately, thou art that, the very source of prana. So mother is the seed of the world, the illusion divine, right? So the illusion is a beautiful illusion. If you look at it knowing that it is the ornament of the divine, that it is the divine behind it, then you don't get stuck in it. You don't suffer for it. If you know the beauty belongs to God and not to the objects themselves, and that divine is within you, and what you're witnessing is God reflected in mind with the misunderstanding of me and mine. That's what we experience in this world. And if we call it anything other than that, it's because of our egoism. We've concocted a story about the world and about what it is, because we talk about it and think of it as being separate from ourselves. So Mother has enchanted the whole universe. Enchanted how? Because she's charming. She's infinite love. She's infinite wisdom, infinite beauty, infinite satisfaction. The supremely satisfied. This is the Divine Mother. And just to be around the Divine Mother is to be enchanted. And so when we see her reflection, which is this world, we are enchanted by it. We find it beautiful, but we think it's separate from the Mother. And so we go chasing it separate from the Mother, and we suffer for that. So it's a divine illusion, and an enchanting universe. And Mother is the goddess supreme behind it. So a lot of our headache will be taken away if we understand that all of the beauty of the manifest world is the ornamentation of the Divine Mother, in a sense. It's the beauty of Ma. And when we learn to see the world that way, we don't need to grab it and try and preserve it and hold it. We can enjoy it in the moment, by our inner state of understanding. When we see the Divine Mother, we know there is no external world. We know it is only here that all of this is emanating from and reflecting off of mind. And so we carry the universe within us. We are not within the universe, very much like for the sleeper at night, the dream is within him. He is not within the dream, even though from his dreaming perspective, he is within the dream. But in reality, the dream is going on inside the dreamer. And that's the world that we live in. O Goddess supreme, with your deluding charms, in your benevolence, you bestow liberation upon human beings. Yeah, that's the grace of Mother. That's how we know grace. We get caught up in our delusions, and then we learn about grace through the Mother helping us out of that delusion, pulling us to our freedom and all the things that we have to learn about our nature and what we are on that way to knowing ourselves, to knowing what we really are. And by knowing what we really are, then we know how to live. And if we live according to that nature, we'll find fulfillment and great bliss in being. All right, so it begins. Once Ramakrishna asked Yogan, one of Mother's companions, "What do you think of me?" Yogan replied, "You are neither a householder nor a sannyasin." All right, so her first estimation is you're not either of the categories. You're not someone who has renounced the world, and you're not someone who has jumped into the world either. And we actually see Ramakrishna does play both parts. He is the ideal sannyasin, because you won't find a renunciation equal to Ramakrishna. So you won't see a greater sannyasin than Ramakrishna, and yet he was married, but he saw his wife as the divine mother and worshipped her as God, worshipped God through her. And so in both ways, Ramakrishna can teach the monk how to reach his ideal, and Ramakrishna is equally able to teach a householder how to reach that same ideal through their practices, through their chosen path. And so he's both and neither in there. He is his own forging, which is, I think, one of the great residues he left behind in this world is a broader freedom around the understanding of the nature of spiritual life. That spiritual life is actually learning to enjoy the world without getting stuck in it. It's knowing what you are so that you can live a rich and beautiful life and enjoy the manifestation of God. And Thakur was so free in that and so pure in that. And the Divine Mother, in her playing her part also, seeing everyone as her children and really delighting in the reality, but playing in the play, as it were. So Yogin replies, "You are neither a householder nor a sannyasin." He meant that the master was God, beyond attributes. Ramakrishna was greatly pleased and exclaimed, "What an extraordinary statement," right? What an extraordinary statement. Similarly, one cannot put any designation, nun or householder, on Holy Mother. She was the Divine Mother. By himself, Ramakrishna could not demonstrate how to lead an ideal householder's life. His householder devotees were in awe of his incredible renunciation and his frequent experiences of samadhi. So he's walking evidence that you don't have to be a monk to realize God, that everybody is on their way to that final destination, that this universe will bring every single one of Mother's children back home safely and soundly. It's just a matter of getting all of them to want to be there and to try and keep them all from running all over this created Walmart, as it were. So what an extraordinary statement to see that, to know somebody that incidentally, I said that Yogin here, I was thinking Yogin Ma, but Yogin was one of the male devotees of Sri Ramakrishna. So he's telling Yogin, what an amazing insight that you have, because I'm just someone it's like Thakur didn't have horns or didn't walk on water, didn't do things that would allow him to be recognized as an incarnation or as the divine. And so for one of his regular disciples to have figured it out on his own is quite an extraordinary thing. That takes an amazing amount of faith, not to think that your friend is just your friend, but to actually recognize God in your friend, and then to then recognize an incarnation independent of any other help. What an amazing ability, what an amazing insight he has. And he says, similarly for Holy Mother, Holy Mother also was mother. So she is a mother, and yet she's childless. So she's both the sannyasin and the householder as well. She's a mother of infinite numbers of children. And you see how one of the things that has really struck me in our reading so far is how Mother just has this web of security that she weaves through and in all of her disciples, all the people that are around her. She's knowing, she's sending this person to Calcutta to get medicine for that person, and she's sending this person to this small town to get this special food or special concoction for this person. And she's just so aware of all of her children's needs, and she's constantly devising ways of relieving their suffering, helping them out, getting them better, answering their questions, taking care of their needs, and being a mother. And I love that. It really has made me feel very deficient in that, in giving me really something that me within me that we all have, that wants to be like that, that wants to express that, because that's also my nature. It's your nature. It's all of our nature. And so we read this wonderful thing about this divine mother, how just she's constantly scanning her family. The whole world is her family, and she's always scanning and always figuring out who needs what, and then making arrangements to get all of that to happen. It's just wonderful to me, a very touching thing. And I think about our sangha, even here online, and that it's not really my place to have visions for mother. This is her business and her group, but I really would love to see that happen amongst us, that we all are. And I think it's happening. I love when I hear of you guys seeing each other and visiting each other and calling each other or hanging out in the WhatsApp group. That's really a great joy to me, because I think that that's mother still working in each one of us to kind of take care of each other. It's her taking care of all of her children, but from our perspective, it's us learning to be surrendered, caring, mothers of the world, as it were. That all of us are called to that same thing. What an extraordinary statement. Similarly, one cannot put any designation, nun or householder, on Holy Mother. She is the Divine Mother. By himself, Ramakrishna could not demonstrate how to lead an ideal householder's life. He needed a family. he needed something to make him a householder. So he had the Divine Mother. And his householder devotees were in awe of his incredible renunciation and his frequent experiences of samadhi, that bliss, that ecstasy, where the body would short circuit, the mind would short circuit, because he would see God directly and experience God directly just by seeing the isness of his moment as it is, and having a silent mind that's not constantly projecting a description or projecting a meaning to the universe. His mind was silent and his ego effaced. So when he looked at the moment, it would be God. There were no objects. There was no separation from him. He would feel and experience the bliss of this universe, that inherent prana, that inherent creative energy, that sustaining energy, and that terrifying destruction. He would see that all at once. He would see the one without a second, that unconditioned love, and that infinite wisdom, that infinite knowing. And it would just short circuit everything. He would go into such an ecstasy that his body and mind would shut down, and he would just be left with tears of bliss flowing out of his eyes. And they say that smile that lit up the entire space that he was in. They felt helpless because they knew it was impossible to follow such an uncompromising and lofty ideal. For that reason, Ramakrishna put Holy Mother in the role of an ideal householder, so that people could see how to live in a family and yet remain detached from the world. Right? By her doing it, she gave a great demonstration. And by the two of them doing it together and being married, they incidentally gave us a great pattern for marriage, because we see Ramakrishna seeing in Holy Mother the Divine Mother and worshiping her and putting her needs above his own. And we see the Divine Mother doing the exact same thing with Ramakrishna, seeing him as Shiva, and seeing him as God and worshiping him as God. And how that is that perfect relationship, perfect householder relationship, where you each, that's why householderism is also a path to God. It's not that that it's not a bypass, not something you have to go off and get lost in until it's your turn to be a monk. We all leave this world as monks, but it's a path, because by putting your partner's needs above your own, you efface your own ego. That's what spiritual practice does. It expands our sense of self to be ever more and more inclusive, so that our empathy, our compassion, our love, our our nature to alleviate suffering, we're continually working at expanding our circle of service, expanding the size of our family, and having that same impetus of the Divine Mother to take care and to nourish and to encourage and to keep our eyes and hearts open for needs that we all might have. Right? So he's placed this in them, showing us that the perfect, simultaneously showing us the ideal sannyas in both men and women, and showing us the divine and highest ideal for marriage, for a householder life, in worshiping God through your partner, through your spouse, and using the service of your family and the sustenance of your family and all of your duties as Rudraksha beads, really. All of your duties are things to keep you aware of the presence of God and to keep you aware of your responsibility to serve and to grow and to push past your boundaries, your limitations, your smallness of ego. As a swan swims in the water but becomes dry the moment it shakes its wings on dry land, Holy Mother lived in the midst of her family's circle and yet remained free, like a Paramahamsa, a supreme swan. You know, that's the symbol of a sannyasin, the swan, because it's always white and can't be dirtied and is always in the water but is never wet. So this is a teaching in and of itself for us to be swans in this world. You know, we live in the world, like Jesus says, you know, be in the world but not of the world. And so we live in this world and we attach to things deeply in this world, but then we also detach as it's necessary. We've made both of those strengths equal, our power of attachment and our power of detachment. And so like a Paramahamsa, like a free swan, we enjoy our domain, but we're not stuck in it. We're not affected by it. We know ourselves to be the divine self, the soul, which can't be burned, can't be wetted, cannot be affected by material at all, can't be affected by anything at all, because it is the thing itself. It is that which is all. Of course, like regular householders, she cried and smiled. She suffered from worries and anxieties, from grief and pain, and from those financial and physical problems. In addition, she faced abuse and was beset by demands from her close relatives. Still, she maintained her calm. She maintained her serenity, her forbearance and forgiveness. Here's some wonderful pictures of Mother. There. Just such a sweetness, such a maturity in her eyes. I love them because there's such a sweetness and yet such a strength simultaneously in her face. You know, there's that wonderful grace and that wonderful compassion of motherhood, but then there's also that strength of Kali in there. You know that you don't mess with Mother. You know, if Mother tells you to do something, you better do it, because Father is also under the power of Mother. All right, so she had the list here. She maintained her calm and serenity, her forbearance and forgiveness, and her love and her compassion. There's a great to-do list for us. If you're ever wondering what to work on in your life, you can always use that list. Work on your calmness and your equanimity, your compassion, your love. As an actor performs two roles, one on the stage and the other at home, so the Mother acted in two roles simultaneously. She performed her duty toward her brothers, her sisters-in-law, her nieces and nephews, and yet she also acted as a spiritual teacher, initiating, awakening God consciousness in her devotees' minds, you know, as well as leading, helping construct the order and the institution that bears Ramakrishna's message to the world. She presided over that for its first decade or so. You know, the monks would never do anything without the Divine Mother's consultation. So they had a great reverence for her. Sometimes in family life, we find much selfishness. Much cruelty and hatred, jealousy, quarreling, and ill feelings, no peace or joy. Many worldly minded people turn their homes into hell. Ramakrishna and Holy Mother demonstrated how to transform that hell into a heaven. Ramakrishna graphically described the worldly minded as such. The worldly minded never come to their senses, even though they suffer and have terrible experiences. Camels are very fond of thorny shrubs. The more they eat of them, the more do their mouths bleed, yet they do not refrain from taking them for food. The worldly man is like a snake trying to swallow a mole. The snake can neither swallow the mole nor give it up. The bound soul may have realized that there is no substance to the world, that the world is like a hog plum, which means there's no juice there. You know, a hog plum is just a pit with a piece of skin around it. There's no fruit in there to enjoy, and yet we insist on trying to get fruit out of the hog plum. You know, this world again and again we go there to fulfill ourselves. We eat 3 times a day, and yet we're always getting hungry again. You know, you make your bed and you mess it again. You wash your dishes, they get dirty again. Everything in this world is a cycle like that. You know, there is no one-time fulfillment of anything. Thakur is saying, understand the meaning of that. There is nothing for you in this world. You did not come to this world to get. Otherwise, you would be able to get, but you're not able to get. When you go at the end, you have to leave it all. And so he says, understand that lesson. You're not in this world to get. You're in this world to manifest. And what are you manifesting? You're manifesting what you are. And what are you? You are that divine love, that divine wisdom, and the magic of being. The worldly minded never come to their senses. So like a camel eating a thorny shrub, it hurts, they're bleeding, but they still continue to eat it. You know, he's like a snake trying to swallow a mole. You know, can't get that whole mole into its mouth, and the mole with its arms are able to keep the snake from being able to swallow him. So he says that the snake can neither swallow the mole nor give it up. And so that's how we exist in this world as worldly people. We're suffering from it. We know that it doesn't serve us. We know that our alcoholism, that our drug addiction, that our party mind, that whatever you want to call these things, these things that we have thrown ourselves into for our desires, we see that they don't feed us. We see that they're not good for our lives. We see that they don't keep us happy. And yet we keep returning. Why? Because we don't know of anything else. You know, that's why Jesus forgave the crowd from the cross. Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. You know, so this is a fundamental understanding of the divine toward us. And perhaps one of the reasons there's so much grace is that God knows our ignorance. God knows all of these inner conditions. The world is like a hog plum. It's only a stone and skin. But still, he cannot give it up and turn his mind to God. There is another characteristic of the bound soul. If you remove him from his worldly surroundings to a spiritual environment, he will pine away. The worm that grows in filth feels very happy there. It thrives in filth. It will die if you put it into a pot of rice. Right? So he said, we get into these habits. We like our habits. You know, we do. We see them hurt us. We see them slow us down. We see them limit our success in the world. But we can't get over them. We can't let go. We can't renounce, right? We've got that nagging feeling that we're going to miss something, or that, oh my gosh, what if this isn't true and there's more and then I'll have nothing. You know, there's all kinds of weird thoughts in the mind that hold us where we are. But it's always important for us to face that truth, that we're not realized at this moment, not because we can't be, but because we choose not to be. We do love our lives. We do love our personalities. We do love this collection of restrictions and limitations that our personality is. We enjoy it. It gives us a comfort and a sense. And yes, it hurts, but it's familiar. You know, yes, it goes round and round in cycles, but it's familiar to us. And so we don't have that urgency inside. We don't have a real conviction of that understanding that we live in the midst of God, and that if we would let go of these little limitations that prevent us from seeing, we would know that and experience that in the same divine ecstasy that Ramakrishna did. Before Ramakrishna passed away, he asked Holy Mother to look after the people of Calcutta, most of whom were worldly minded and materialistic. Later, the mother remarked that the master had concentrated on a selected few and left the masses to her. Actually, he didn't say masses. When she complained about it, she says, he left the riffraff for me. that's why I took a great liking to that. The devotees in the Hollywood Center, my very first lecture that I gave there, I titled it Mother's Riffraff. And so they had a T-shirt made that I still have, but it's not really in wearable condition anymore. But it says Mother's Riffraff on the front of it. And it's funny because when I used to wear that, people used to think that that was a band. They thought, what a great name for a band, dude. It's like, yeah, thanks. So this notion of, Mother's infinite number of children that she used to complain in a joking way, maybe joking, maybe she wasn't. That Thakur took all the great disciples, the Vivekananda, the Brahmananda. She took all the great gems and then left her with the riffraff. So he has the Holy Mother. He gives her all of Calcutta to take care of, and mentions that it's a worldly group of people. How can we harmonize the world and God, the active life and the contemplative life? Spiritual aspirants all over the world ask this question. Ramakrishna answered it with the following illustration. So how do we live in the world and maintain a spiritual life? How do we focus on the absolute unchanging within us and yet live in a world of constant unrepeating change? What is the way to do this? And according to Swami Chaitananda here, he's about to tell us. So let's hear this. In Karmarpur, which is where Ramakrishna was raised, a little village, I have seen the women of carpenter families making flattened rice with a husking machine. One woman kicks the end of the wooden beam, and another woman, while nursing her baby, turns the paddy in the mortar dug in the earth. The second woman is always alert lest the pestle of the machine should fall on her hand. With the other hand, she fries and soaks the paddy in a pan. Besides this, she is talking with the customers. She says, you owe us so much money. Please pay it before you go. Likewise, do your different duties in the world. Okay, so he's saying there's no need to change what you do in the world. Do what the moment brings to you, right? But fix your mind on God. Have that thought of the divine in the back of the mind always. Never forget the presence of God. Brother Lawrence did that. It took him 10 years to get that, and then 5 more years to actually fall into ecstasy from it. But just to be always in the presence of God, or always aware of the divine reality, So fix your mind on God. But practice is necessary. One should also be alert. Well, what does he mean by alert? By alert, he means awake, in awareness. You're not falling into just a habit of being, so you're sitting on the bus, you just kind of blank out going to work, and you don't come to until you get off the bus. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for a constant awareness within, a constant awareness to the witness who's always seeing the state of the mind, always seeing the thoughts of the mind come and go, always seeing the body, always understanding the state and nature of the body, and always actively discerning to keep itself aloof, to not be pulled in, to identifying with the body and identifying with the mind, and then consequently becoming small and selfish and not being able to manifest our nature because it's been covered with the wrong idea, the idea of being body-mind. So he's saying like these women husking this rice, this big husking machine is running, and the pounder is going there to flatten the rice, and it's flattening in the little holes as the big wheel turns. And so they're having to reach into that hole and get the flattened rice out, put the new rice in, and let it go around and get flattened. And so she's doing that with one hand. She's holding the baby in the other hand and nursing it, at the same time taking care of one of the customer at the counter with money, right? The whole time she knows that she's a mother. The whole time she's being a mother and taking care of all of these things simultaneously, but never forgetting. And so this is how we are spiritual in this world. It's like that's how we turn our days into practice, not just our segmented periods of time in the day that we have set aside, but to actually turn life itself into practice, so that everything is done out as an act of love. Everything is done with an awareness of the presence and the nature of all things, being divine, being sacred. And so we have a careful attitude about it. You know, we learn from Holy Mother with the disciple who swept her room for her, and then when he was done, he kind of just tossed the broom into the closet. And Mother stops him and says, well, what was that? Why are you just discarding that broom as if it's nothing? That broom also is a member of our household. Those are Holy Mother's words. That broom is also a member of my household, right? And what does that mean? We respect it. We respect it. We put it back in the closet where it belongs, carefully placed in the right place, in a way that's not going to fall over, and in a way that it can be found easily next time. And so that's alert living. That's awareness. It's not just opening the door, throwing the broom in and not knowing where it lands, shutting the door, moving on to the next thing. That's how worldly people live in the world. But if you want to make the world a spiritual practice, you don't want to live that way. You can, you're welcome to, but you hurt a lot with that life. A lot of unconscious things happen to you that cause pain, and you don't know what the cause is because you weren't conscious when you performed the cause. And so you can't see. That's where spiritual blindness comes. It's falling into habit and falling into assumption and losing that awareness of the moment as it is. Worldly but blessed brothers. Holy Mother's father died in 1874 and her mother in 1906. Although Holy Mother had been blessed with godly parents, she was truly unfortunate regarding her other relatives. How would you like that if some great book like this being read by everybody around the world demeans you as one of her families, you know? Her brothers Prasana, Kalikumar, and Bharata were greedy, selfish, and quarrelsome. Her sisters-in-law were opportunists and jealous of one another, and her nieces were demanding, annoying, jealous, and eccentric. Holy Mother was the eldest among 5 brothers and 1 sister. Her sister, Kadambini, died soon after she was married, leaving no offspring. Her brother Umesh died at the age of 18 or 19, unmarried. Abhay Charan, the youngest, died from cholera after finishing medical school, leaving his insane wife, Shorabala, who was pregnant with their daughter Radhu. The remaining 3 brothers, Prasana, Kalikumar, and Bharata, lived to old age. So you can see, life in the wild is quite a bit more dangerous than what it is nowadays, when we've got all of our antibiotics and whatnots to keep at bay. But in those days, people died of cholera, died of tuberculosis, died of malaria. Swami Prabhupada told about some of his family members that passed away from malaria. And so, but all of that going on, and Holy Mother being Holy Mother in the midst of it. Prasana and Bharata spent most of their time in Calcutta and supported their families by performing rituals at different homes. Prasana married Ramapriya and had 2 daughters, Nalini and Sushila, also known as Maku. When Rampriya died in 1905, Prasana married Subhashini, who bore him 3 children, Kamala, Bimala, and Ganapati. Nalini and Maku were later married but had unhappy lives. They were tossed between irresponsible husbands and their stepmother, who disliked them. So they lived mostly with Holy Mother. Bharata married Indumati, and they had 2 sons, Kshudiram and Vijay Krishna. Kali Kumar lived in Jairambati and made his living through priestly duties and farming. Kali Kumar was short-tempered and never got along with his brothers. He loved power and he wanted to control the family affairs. Okay, there's two things if you want to make sure not to get along with your family members. There's two things that you should begin at: a love for power and a desire to control everybody. Put those two together and you'll be well hated. So be careful. When you're around people, understand that it's the ego's need to garner power and it's the ego's need to control, and that egoism always depends on division. It always depends on boundaries, on this being you and that being them. And it never lets go of that concept. So take this as a warning. The reason that he never got along with the family was because he was egotistical in those two ways: a love of power and a need to control everyone. Both of those have to die as quickly as you can kill them. they are demons that are hanging around the Divine Mother's colleague's neck, the heads of those demons. The members of Holy Mother's immediate family were all associated with her life in various ways. Her sisters-in-law were much younger than she, and she taught them their household duties, including how to cook. Only a jeweler knows the value of a jewel. An eggplant seller knows only eggplants. Neither Ramakrishna nor Holy Mother's relatives recognized the divinity of the two. Ramlal, Lakshmi, and Shivaram considered the master to be merely their uncle. Prasanna, Kali Kumar, and Bharata thought of Holy Mother simply as their sister, and to their children she was merely an aunt. Divine beings cannot play the role of humans if people recognize their true nature. One can know God only through his grace. The Upanishad says, the Atman is attained by that person whom it chooses. Right? That person whom it chooses. And so it's really a thing, our own self. We choose the blinders. We like our egoism. We invest in it. And we're lackluster in our practice to overcome it. Our austerities to try and diminish egoism, and our practice of non-resistance, to let go of that ego's need to control. We simply accept things as they are, invite them in, and do what? Introduce them to our nature, and then through our nature's inspiration, we produce beauty from the moment, from whatever the moment gives to us. In the ideal, that's what we are as spiritual seekers. People who can take the product of the moment, or take the moment and create a product of beauty out of it. That's our nature, to take this moment and make it beautiful. How? By being inspired by our nature of love and our nature of wisdom. So one can know God only through his grace. There it is. If you were thinking your practice was going to do it for you, you's wrong. If you were thinking your purity is going to do it for you, wrong again. The only way we see God is through grace. And why is that necessary? Because if it wasn't true, the only other alternative is through egoism. We would have to be the doer. And if you're a doer, you've got an ego. The ego is the one that collects doership, that takes responsibility. So it's egoism that holds our karma. It's egoism's identity with being the doer that causes our karma and builds our karma. And so if spiritual life was the result of actions or doings, then it would be egoism that would bring us to enlightenment. But it's not. It's grace. And to accept, one of my favorite little things to remind myself always, to accept infinite grace requires infinite humility. You have to come to the point inside, and this is actually, I think, in a very tongue-in-cheek, playful sort of way in this universe, the only reason we have to do our practice is because there's no other way for us to realize we can't do it. And the reason that we're told to work so hard is because we have to try our very best and fail our very worst in order to be able to accept grace, to where we just roll over in absolute surrender and just call out laughingly, maybe, "Oh, refuge, you're right. You're right. I can't do this. I can't do it one more second." And Mother hears the earnestness in that plea, and with grace comes and gives you all that you have searched for. Not because you've searched for it, but because it was always you, but you were able to transcend your egoism, transcend your sense of separateness, your wall between you and God. You yourself have come to the point of being willing to remove that. And then comes enlightenment, then comes the beauty. Girish Ghosh once remarked that Holy Mother's brothers must have performed bone-breaking austerities in her previous life to have obtained her as their sister. Kali Kumar always took advantage of Holy Mother's goodness with a view of getting some money from her and also to show his power. In 1917, he proposed that the family observe Sri Ramakrishna's birthday festival in a grand way in Jairambati. Holy Mother responded, "Oh, look, Kali, I do not have the devotion and energy that you have, so I cannot observe the Master's birthday anniversary on such a large scale myself. You make a feast for the entire household as well as some villagers, and whatever vegetables are available in this village. As you see, my health is failing day by day." Kali Kumar took the money from her and arranged the feast. Before Durga Puja, the Durga worship in 1918, Prasanna went to Calcutta to perform his duties there. Before he left, he said to Mother, "Sister, you have just come to Jairambati, and I am leaving for Calcutta. Please look after my wife and children. Now Kali will have a nice time. He has sufficient land to live well here with his family, but I must leave my family to earn money." Kali Kumar overheard the conversation and remarked, "Now you are whining before our sister to get money from her." You're just trying to convince her to give some money. Kali Kumar replied, I served Paramahamsa Deva, meaning Ramakrishna, and he used to love me. You never tried to be close to him. Moreover, I take care of our sister and her devotees here. You don't understand how much devotion I have for our sister, Prasanna responded. You can't respect her as I do. Only our sister knows and I know. So if you're watching that, if you're wondering what ego looks like, that little conversation right there, that's what egoism looks like. If you find yourself having comparative conversations with people like that about your qualities or the qualities of things that are yours, versus the things that are theirs and vice versa. If you can hear this conversation in yourself, be aware. This is why when we say live an alert life, this is what he's talking about. If you hear yourself seeing things like this, saying things like this, observing things like this in the world, know that you're working from a egoistic perspective. Know that you have not yet surrendered. You have not yet ripened the coconut. So be on the guard, be watching, so that you need to become intimately familiar with your inner world. Why? So that you know what it feels like when you're in ego state, and what it feels like when you're surrendered, when you're in a state of refuge in the heart, in the shrine. You need to know what it feels like when you've identified with the body, and what it feels like to withdraw that identity. You need to become familiar with what it feels like to attach to the mind, to a thought, and you have to get the skills and become aware of the feeling of what it is to let go of a thought, to detach a thought, and to understand what the relationship between attachment and identity is, because all of these can be experienced and are experienced within. And if you can learn to be aware at that point, before these things come out as action, before they develop as thoughts, you are aware of them, because in their infancy like that, They're easily changed, easily controlled. So if renunciation happens at that level, it's much more successful than trying to renounce once you've got a full-blown desire or have put your mind into a particular state of mind by collecting a series of thoughts without being aware of the process. It's much harder to go forward in spiritual life living in the mind and trying to quiet it simultaneously. Right? So we want to become aware of something deeper within, a silence that's native to us, deep within, before mind, before body. And that is what is inherent in the observer, in the witness within. And so when we touch that self, when we stop being deeply identified with all of our thinking and all our processes of thinking and all of our doings and all of our experience of this life, once we get tired of those things and we retreat, we take refuge in God, in the shrine of the heart, where God dwells, the drawing room of God, as Ramakrishna calls it. We do that through awareness, right? Because we are not achieving enlightenment as something different from what we are. It's all done through awareness because we're simply returning to what we have always been. We're trying to undo our delusion of being a person of our thoughts, meaning that we're affected by our thoughts, that when the mind is in a happy state, we're happy. When the mind is depressed, we're depressed. When the mind is restless, we're restless, right? We need to get in the state where we're not bothered by the condition of mind. We notice, the mind is restless. The mind is depressed. The mind is happy. Whatever state it's in, we see it as a third party. We know it's not us. And so we're not pulled and pushed in all different directions. Same thing with the body. Instead of going into bad moods because we're hungry, that's identity. I'm hungry. I'm cranky because I'm hungry. But if you rather go and say, the body's hungry, the mind, take note of that mind. You need to get some food for body at some point here. And then you move on. It doesn't affect anything else. It stays where it is. So you know who you are. You don't get pulled into fights because there's nothing there to fight in you. They are you, you are them. Let it be. Expand yourself to include both. All right. Holy Mother listened to her two brothers' arguments and she smiled because she knows, right? She's seeing, she's so aware of within herself that when she hears them talking, she knows exactly the reality of what's happening inside, right? And so she laughs. And so this, I think, is how God sees us. The thing that really set for how I have chosen at this point to view God viewing me is this wonderful YouTube video I saw of this young toddler who her mom had made like a dozen cupcakes and they were cooling on a cooling rack on the counter. And of course, one of them is missing. And so she calls little Johnny over, Johnny. And of course, Johnny comes out from behind the cabinet and he's got cupcake icing all the way around his lips, right? And he's standing there looking at his mom oh so earnestly with big eyes like, what? what do you want, Mom? And she's like, Johnny, did you eat one of the cupcakes? An emphatic waving of my head, no, And are you sure you didn't eat any of these cupcakes? But Johnny, one of the cupcakes is missing. And he points at the dog. The guy's sinning, right? We can take that. He's lying. He's deceiving. He's doing all these terrible things. But yeah, I, as the watcher of the YouTube video, am laughing my head off because it's so funny to watch. And the mother, she knows that he ate that cookie and she's trying to get him to be honest. But she's not thinking of how she's going to punish him. She's not sitting there thinking, I'm going to take this kid's head off as soon as I get around. I'm going to get that cupcake back. And so God is like that with us. It's like, yes, we make our huge mistakes. Yeah, we're bumbling around being idiots, and some more than others. There's no doubt about it. But you know, if you're a person who knows the nature of God, if you're someone spending earnest time trying to discover that nature, trying to manifest that nature, trying to get your egoism out of the way so that that can flow through you, then you feel God's laughter as well. You know, even in the tough times, you kind of get the joke that there's many layers of a running joke, that is this Maya, that is this reality that we're living in, and that it's funny. Yes, we suffer, but do we? You know, ultimately we don't. Just like in the dream, yes, you can suffer in a dream. You can have a nightmare of terror, right? You can have a nightmare of being tortured, and you can feel all of that pain and all that horror. But when you wake up, do you weep over it? When you wake up, do you check yourself for scars? No, because it never happened. There was an unreality to it. And so, if we as spiritual people can live in this dream, knowing that it's a dream, knowing the nature of this reality is the manifestation of God, and that material is not real. It's paper thin. It's only as thick as this moment. Think of how thin this moment is. You know, this moment is paper thin. It's translucent so much. It's so thin. And all of material reality is only on that sliver of the moment. So this moment is so insubstantial, so unreal, right? And if we identify with it, we suffer so much. You know, the Lord is sitting there watching you put your hands over your eyes and complain to him that you can't see. And he's looking at you like you sweet little dumb toddler. Take your hands off your eyes and you'll be able to see. You know, stop being selfish. Stop being self-centered. You know, stop thinking yourself to be this body. Let the body do what it's doing. It's going away. From the day it's born, it's going toward its death. Let it go. You know, your mind, it goes up and down, left and right 300 times a second. What home are you going to find there? What comfort will you be able to create there? No. Observe it, know it for what it is. And in that silence, be informed of your nature. In that love that you feel inside, be informed of your nature. But be informed when nothing is telling you. It's a matter of isness, a matter of awareness, a matter of presence. In that silence, you are aware of all that you are. You're aware of an infinity in time, an infinity in space, an infinity of self. You know, there is no boundary. All is your very own. We come to know this. Oh my, it's 7:06. Okay. Well, we'll stop there for tonight. Let me stop our recorder.